Hello and welcome to another edition of the Back Nine Report, where every week Fred Altvater and I check in on the world of golf to bring you the latest news, insights, analysis, interviews, recaps, previews. Hey, we cover anything and everything golf. In other words, if it happened in golf, we have it for you. And boy, do we have a good one right now because we're going to be talking about Ryder Cup. It's Ryder Cup week. We have plenty of coverage in different videos that we're going to be doing. But the first one that we're going to be talking about right here is about Team Europe, the picks, about how good they are, what are their chances, and who better to bring that to us, starting with us here today than Kieran Clark. So he's going to be here. I'm going to bring him pretty soon. So I'm going to talk to Fred Altvater first. Fred, hi, how are you today?
Hey guys, I'm fantastic. It's Ryder Cup week. We're really excited. Can't wait to go. I just can't understand. I know everybody says, well, Europe is the underdog. They won 9 out of 12. They got to be the favorites, right?
No, they don't. They don't want that. They say we are the underdogs. You guys are the big ones, but we have to bring the big one,
The big one, literally.
the big knowledge one, and that is Kieran Clark, the European golf guru, to tell us their first take on their European team. So, Kieran, Europe, Paddy Harrington is the captain. He brings in Ian Poulter, Sergio Garcia, Shane Lowry. Surprising to everybody here on this side of the pond. I'm sure there wasn't that big of a surprise back there. But in the rest of the team, Jon Rahm, the only top 10 player in the official World Golf rankings.
Number one.
He's number one, of course. Tommy Fleetwood, Tyrell Hatton, Bernd Wiesberger, Matt Fitzpatrick, Rory McIlroy, Paul Casey, Lee Westwood, and Victor Hovland, who's actually the second highest ranked player in the world for the Europeans, just above Rory McIlroy. So how about this team? What do you see about their strengths, their weaknesses? How do you see them performing this week?
Well, you said I was big, Carlos, and I have been trying to lose some pounds lately, so I take deep offense to what you said there, saying I was big. And I know you meant it in a different sense, but still, I'm very sensitive. But no, this European team, on the other hand, is very hard.
Big. Hey, I'm not gonna stand up, but I'm the biggest of the three.
Yeah,
I would take the whole picture here.
Put it this way, Carlos. There's more of you to love, and that's the way to look at it.
Oh man, that's a good one. I'll write that down.
But yes, on the European team, we'll move swiftly on to the European team. And you're right, Carlos. Obviously, the picks for Europe, the captain's picks, they were not a great shot. Shane Lowry, yes, he's a rookie, but he's a guy that's won an Open Championship, won World Golf Championships, very experienced, and going to be a great asset to this team. And obviously, Sergio Garcia, the record point scorer in Ryder Cups, and Ian Poulter, the talisman for Europe for so many years. So Europe have gone for experience. 5 years ago at Hazeltine, Europe had a very inexperienced team with 6 rookies, and they were ultimately demolished over the 3 days. They've learned from that, and they've realised that particularly in an away Ryder Cup, especially this time, with no away fans really in attendance at Whistling Straits, and it's vital that they have guys that have been there and done it, seasoned players, and Europe have probably the most experienced team ever, certainly in contrast to the USA, who are comparatively inexperienced. That's not to say one is better than the other, but there's a disparity there. And I think ultimately the answer will come on Sunday when we find out whether the experience really counts or not, depending on the result. But the European team, on paper, yeah, the guys are lower down the world rankings, and maybe some of the guys haven't been in great form this past year. But when they come to this event, they come alive, they embrace the format, they embrace each other, often literally, and they get the most out of their games because they raise their game. Because for them, this is the ultimate. This is the grandest stage for them, and they thrive in this environment. And they will thrive being the away team in this particular setting with a very strong home crowd, and it makes them a very strong outfit. So I think they're a really solid team. And I would say, Carlos, that with Padraig Harrington, to me, it's always a great argument whether the captain really influences things. And they do to some extent, clearly, particularly when these matches are so tight and so close, generally speaking. And I think Harrington's a really, really interesting guy and an impressive guy in so many aspects. And I'd always be wary of the overachievers. And Padraig Harrington was an overachiever as a golfer. He was never destined for great things as a young man, but he achieved great things. He has a wonderful analytical mind. And he's very determined, and he's someone who, if his team plays like him, channels his personality, then they could be really hard to beat this week. So we look at in terms of the players, Carlos, and the team throughout the team there. So you got also Jon Rahm leads the way, world number one, the standout, could be the leader. Your Rory McIlroy is number 50 in the world, but you can't tell me there's 14 better golfers in the world than Rory McIlroy on his day. I mean, he's still up there on his day. And, the Ryder Cup could be his stage again to show his best form. Now he's really one of the veterans. But I'm looking forward to seeing, guys, Carlos, some of the more seasoned players. I think Lee Westwood is playing his 11th Ryder Cup. Had a really disappointing appearance in 2016. And that appeared to be potentially his last appearance, but he's obviously had a good resurgence in the past couple of years. I think he'll be looking to have probably his swan song and trying to go out on a really good note. Likewise with Ian Poulter, he's always delivered. Is it one step too far? Time will tell. Also Matt Fitzpatrick, Carlos, who was in the Ryder Cup team in 2016, had a disappointing debut. He'll be looking to prove himself in this environment. Paul Casey, very solid player, very underrated player. Bernd Wiesberger, yes, he's a rookie, not a well-known name in America, but he's a proven winner on the European Tour and could, I think, be one of the surprise players this week. Then you look at Victor Hovland, a rookie who's impressed so many people over the past few years. US Amateur champion, he's won twice on the PGA Tour, he's won a European Tour now. Great all-round game. I'm fascinated to see how he does this week. He could become the next European superstar. He's the first golfer from Norway to play in the Ryder Cup. Likewise, Wiesberger is the first Austrian golfer to play in the Ryder Cup. So Team Europe, Carlos, brings together all these international, all these different nationalities. They all come together as one, take on the monster of the USA. And they're determined, they're not the strongest team on paper, but as a unit, in the end, it's not, if this was 3 days of singles golf, the US would win, I would say, but it's not. It's team golf the first 2 days. And this European team, I think, will come together very well as a team. They will play strongly. I think they will perform well. I think a lot of the players will contribute. The question is, though, how strong will Team USA be? I think it's all about them. I think Europe will be good. We can bank on them being very good. But will the USA be good enough to respond? And we'll find out on Friday morning.
Will do. I mean, Europe is bringing winning experience to Wisconsin, Fred. And like Kieran mentioned, Lee Westwood ties the European record by playing his 11th Ryder Cup at age 48, the tender age of 48. He's joining Sergio Garcia already with the highest points total in history on a short list of those who have played in the Ryder Cups over the past 4 decades. He has contributed 25.5 points. That is the same amount as the entire US team combined. Okay, so we can't really discard those captain's picks, and the experience really matters here, Fred.
Yeah, as we said, you got 8 of the top 10 in the world ranking on the American team, but you can just throw that out the window because this is a Ryder Cup, and you're bringing all this experience from Europe over here. Are you going to tell me that? Are you going to put Jon Rahm and Sergio Garcia together in foursomes and 4-ball? You're going to tell me American team that's going to beat them in 4 matches, in 4 times to beat them? Who's going to beat them maybe once, okay, out of 4 chances? And Padraig's going to trot them out there every time. He might let Sergio get off 1 and maybe slip somebody else in there. And then, you've got Rory, and you can pair him with, I don't care who you want to pair him with, put him with Poulter. They used to pair together and win back at Medina. Maybe they can find magic again. My only question, I got a couple questions really for Kieran, but number one, and you alluded to it, how many times can you trot these guys out there? When is enough enough? Are they too old? Can they still get it done? And on the second thought, can these guys, how do they come together when you got all these countries coming together? In the United States, we're all united. We're all Americans. We're all from the same country. Well, I guess you could maybe throw out Xander and Cantley and Morikawa because they're from California, and that's like another country anyhow. But other than that, and then you don't have Justin Rose on the team. You got Lowry instead of Justin Rose. So I mean, it just blows my mind that you bring these old guys over here and you probably come over and kick our butt.
Well, I think Kieran, the big question that we would like to have also from you, because maybe, and this is the only question marks that I have with Europeans, but I guess Patty already knows how to. Fred mentioned it. Jon Rahm, definitely, I see him with Sergio Garcia playing at least 3 sessions for sure.
Yeah.
But after that, I don't know. I mean, they're masterful at the foursomes. That's like where they make their winnings here. But how do you see that team yelling together, and how do you see the pairings coming up? And also just answering Fred's question about the age. When is it too much for them?
Well, on Fred's question, I think this might be it for a lot of these guys. I think Lee Westwood's probably going to be the captain next time round in 2023 in Italy. It's almost certain in my mind, unless he won a couple of majors between now and then, which would be obviously a great career ender for him, but I doubt it. So, and then, Ian Poulter, he's 45 now, maybe one more for him, potentially, if he's still at a decent level as a golfer. So this could be the last throw of the dice for a lot of these guys. Westwood, Poulter, maybe not Garcia, maybe another one for him perhaps, but we're getting there. Will Justin Rose get back in there in 2 years? Who knows? Henrik Stenson, probably not. So that generation of, a wonderful generation of the past decade or so for Europe's probably coming towards an end. But who's going to replace them in the future? Well, I think there's some great candidates right there. You've got the Højgaard brothers as well, the twin brothers who have won the European Tour recently. Fantastic players, so young, so much great future for them. Bob McIntyre from Scotland as well, and so many others. So we'll see perhaps a fresher European team in 2 years' time. Whereas I think Harrington had the mindset of, let's try and get the experienced guys on away soil because it works so well. And in the end, in the past 20 years or so, the US really only wins on home soil. They're much stronger at home than they are away. So I think there's a reason why the experienced team is there. So I think for these guys, this could be the changing of the guard for the US has happened this year. For Europe, it might happen in 2 years' time. Whereas we see some of the more of the established names kind of disappear and newer guys come through, which could be very interesting to see in 2 years' time. But on your question, Carlos, about the pairings and so on, I'm not convinced about the Garcia Rahm thing at all. I've got to say, I don't think that's going to happen. I'd be surprised if it does. I think they'll be kept apart. I think they'll both work well with other players. I think the European team is very adaptable. So I see, in terms of several pairings I've got here on my list, so I think we're going to see potentially McIlroy with Hovland and foursomes on Friday morning. I think that's a possibility. Hovland has to play foursomes. McIlroy will be there with him. I think he'll play all the matches. Lowry, I think, go with Poulter in that format as well. Lowry's a great all-round player, great short game, great iron player. Poulter holes putts for fun in the Ryder Cup. Potentially Paul Casey and Tyrrell Hatton, they played together in France 3 years ago. We could see that again. And perhaps Westwood alongside Fitzpatrick, 2 Englishmen there, an older guy and a younger guy with 2 experienced players in some respects, and both hoping for a better outing than what they had 5 years ago. Padraig Harrington has spoken about, he has several different plans. He has a plan A, which he's going to try and stick to as close as he can, but that might change. He has a plan B and a plan C, and he has plans for everything. He's so analytical and so prepared. This guy is one of the most cerebral players that we've seen for a long time, and he will certainly bring that to Europe. He won't panic, put it that way.
He's the Bryson DeChambeau of his day.
He's a Bryson DeChambeau of his day, and but to be fair, he is more popular, I think, with his peers than DeChambeau is. But and actually, Fred, you mentioned earlier about potentially Brooks Koepka having his arm around DeChambeau, perhaps around his neck rather than his shoulder. That's probably what he'd be doing. A tight squeeze there under the bicep. But no, I think the European team, they come together really well. And Fred asked the question as well, Carlos, about why these guys come together so well. And I think it comes from the fact that for a lot of them, they grew up on the European Tour together, much more cosmopolitan environment, but more so than that as well, where these guys, even if they live in America, they all know where they come from, and they come from Europe, they come from different parts of Europe, and obviously individually, the European countries, they couldn't take on the US in an equal fight. The population is just too disparate, it's just too big a difference. But collectively together, I have to remember, geographically, the continent of Europe is basically the same size as the United States. So every state in America is about the same size as one European country. So it's much more cohesive than what it may seem. Yes, there's cultural differences. Yes, we spent half the last century at war with each other. But when it comes to the Ryder Cup, now they come together. And that team aspect, that team environment, they enjoy it, they embrace it, and it can count for an awful lot. Match play is a great equaliser, team match play especially, if you have the right ingredients. And Padraig Harrington has a great team here. He's got not necessarily the best individual golfers they've ever had, but as a team, I think it's very solid. And I think they will play well. They'll be strong. They'll be close. They'll contend. But the question is, Carlos, can the Americans match that or potentially surpass it? I think this is all about Team USA, because I think Europe will be very good. Can the US match them? That will determine who wins the Ryder Cup.
Well, we're going to have a nugget on the Team USA, and we'll answer that question then. But just a short adding to what you're saying about how they become so cohesive is, I think their beginnings in the European Tour is very different to the beginnings of the players on the PGA Tour, because being that it's a world tour, these players have to really come together. They actually share more because they're in different countries and they have to get around. They have to talk to each other. How do I go around about this? They really become more of a friendship at that time than what the US players do here in the States on the PGA Tour. Everything is in the States, nothing changes. It's just a different state that I'm going to be in. But if I have to go to a different country, there's different cultures. I have to adapt. I have to see with the local people, the local players from there. I have to reach out to them, try to say, hey, what do I do here? So that's how those things get together for these European players. And that's where it all starts. So Fred, any final words here on the European team before we close?
No, I think Kieran wrapped it up really nicely. Just a couple questions. You got Fleetwood doesn't have Molinari to partner with this time. I think he went 5-0 last time. He won his singles match as well, 4-0. There are a couple questions, Mark, on the European team, but a lot of familiar faces, and I'm not going to pick a winner just yet, but I think it's going to be tough for the American team to beat them.
We'll see. We'll see who's going to be the next Francesco Molinari here, and Molinari, Fleetwood. Fleetwood doesn't have that partner anymore, but hey, somebody might come and do it, or maybe Fleetwood. But anyway, Team Europe, if there's one thing that we're certain they'll come to play. This is not going to be, if the Americans are going to beat them, it's going to be down to the wire. So we'll see. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Always remember to subscribe to our channel so you can stay up to date with the latest in golf news and information. Also follow us on Twitter, Back9 Report with the number 9 in the middle. Thank you for joining us.